Is it just me?
What is going on, Nissan Nation? From all things here in Studio Central to wherever you are around the globe, this is your Nissan Nation podcast, and I want to welcome everybody in. Danny, what is up, buddy?
How's it going, Dave? How's everything out there?
Oh, it's just peachy. We got thunderstorms and tornadoes coming through tonight, but other than that, I guess we're all good.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we got a few names in here tonight, man.
Yep, old Jim Bob's here. We got some old people, some new people.
We got Jim Bob. I didn't even see Jim Bob pop in there. What's going on, Jim Bob? We're gonna have Jim Bob call in at some point. The people want to know.
Yeah.
Oh man, so we've both had a lot of Nissan going on in our lives this week. But first off, Danny, we've got some new gear coming. Got some new hats.
Yeah.
Got some new hats rolling in, guys. I've been having people hit me up. They're gonna look like this sorta, except it's gonna be a gray and black with a I forget what color Lifestyle said they were gonna put on the stitching, but you can see that. Put that up there. That's the new hats. Well, I won't say the new hats, but we're only doing one color anymore. I'm tired of fighting with people about colors of hats. You get what you get if you want. If not, tan or whatever, the cargo khaki, whatever you call it.
It's the best hat there is, buddy.
Well, hey, so how's your Easter going, Dan? And everybody, how is everybody's Easter going? Whether you're religious or not, I mean, I think this is, everybody sort of takes the day and just chills with some family, right?
Yeah, my Easter's going good. Did the classic Easter egg hunt with the kids. We went to church online. We did our thing.
Yeah, nice. Well, yeah, my dad's a pastor, and he did a little online thing today. Their church has been shut down, but he wasn't going to miss Easter, so he gathered his flock and somehow did it online. So,
it looks like Marty wants a pink hat. He's going to have to wrestle that one from Kelly, I suppose.
Marty, I'm sure we could get you a pink hat if you need be. Let's see, Jeff Farley, how is the Juke coming along? Yeah, I'll talk about the Juke in just a minute. It's been a Juke-full weekend, that's for sure. Danny, you've had a Nissan weekend yourself.
Yeah, I picked up the 300Z this weekend.
Oh, is this breaking news? Yeah. I know you've teased it, but is this breaking news?
Yeah, I'll tell everybody. I mean, my video should be coming out tomorrow, so a little walk around, just an introduction of the new Z 300Z. So I was just geeking out on that thing all weekend, basically.
Yeah. So tell the story a little bit, man. I know you're going to save some of it, but talk a little bit about this Z.
Yeah. So what happened was obviously, for those of you that don't follow my channel, you should, the Groot X. But I put the little black truck that I picked up, that little Frontier. I was like, I got two trucks. I don't really need this.
Yeah.
And so I got it for a steal. So I put it up online to see how much I could get for it. And I got like $3,000 for it. And I was like, sweet. At the same time, there was a friend of mine who had a 300Z that had been sitting in his driveway for a long time, and I knew that it just sat there and it was in pristine condition.
Right.
So I just, like, almost jokingly messaged him, like, I was just kind of like hoping a prayer, and I said, hey, I'll give you $3,000 for that Z, and he said, how about $3,750? And I said, okay.
These are like a Danny deal, man, because you fall into deals like this.
Well, I'll tell you what. I offered him money for it like 5 times before that.
Right.
A little bit more each time, and he kept saying no. And finally he said yes. And I think part of it was because his wife had been pressuring him to get it out of the driveway.
Oh, that's the perfect time, man.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to be there when he did decide to get rid of it. So.
Right, and you guys got to see this. You said you're launching the video tomorrow.
Yeah, the video is going to drop tomorrow. Basically, it's a nice little workaround. It would have dropped today, but the intro, for some reason, didn't record, so I have to re-record the intro. It was one of those, I saw the video of me pressing the start button after I thought I pressed the start button.
Oh, you had a Fat Finger Dave moment.
Yeah, I fat fingered it, so that'll pop out tomorrow. But yeah, it's a 1990. It's not a twin turbo. However, the car, it's so clean. It still has the bags that come with the car. Like if you were to go pick up the car from the dealer,
right?
They give you like bags for the T-tops and straps that go in the back, and just all these like little things that you would get normally brand new if you bought the car from a dealership. You know, every single. I mean, I have the owner's manual. The like everything in the car
makes it super valuable, man.
Oh yeah, dude, and I mean it's so friggin' rad.
Nice. Well, so let's see. New Jersey Shore Guy 28 is asking, how reliable is the 5-speed auto in a 17 through 19 V6 Frontier? Danny, you want to take that?
Yeah, it's extremely reliable. The 5-speed auto, yeah, like the some early model Xterras and I think Frontiers, they had that little problem with the transmission fluid was too caustic, causing a deterioration on the radiator that would and the aluminum of the radiator that caused the coolant to seep through into the transmission fluid in the little bypass section in the bottom.
Was
it early models?
Was it they switched from was it a Matic J to a Matic S or some way, vice versa?
Yeah, they went to a newer synthetic style fluid, and that was less caustic from my understanding.
Right, and I don't hear of any SMOD issues from really 9 on.
Yeah, once they fixed that, they fixed it. But so the transmission has been, and I talked to Level 10 about this, and because that's the transmission I'm going to run in the race truck.
Yes.
And I talked to them, and I said, is this thing going to hold up? Like, what's the deal with it? He said, those transmissions are excessively strong. Like, you very rarely do you have any problems with the transmission. The only time you're going to have a problem with this transmission if you somehow overheat it and burn up the fluid and don't change the fluid in.
Yeah.
So, like, the second you go over, I want to say it's like 220 or 230, basically your transmission fluid starts to break down, and that's when you can have a lot of issues with seals and causing excessive wear on stuff. And that happens really quick when you overheat that transmission.
Right,
so,
right.
That's one of the only things that I've heard of having problems. If for some reason, let's just say somebody's towing something that they shouldn't be towing, or they did the SMOD bypass and they didn't run a big enough cooler.
Right, which I did. I had that problem.
Yeah. But even then, Dave, yours didn't. I mean, you didn't hurt it per se,
No, mine went into limp mode real quick, and I instantly shut it down, let it cool down, and limped it back to the garage, and then put a bigger cooler in it. Or actually, I put a fan in it. That's what I did. I put an electric fan on mine so I could keep it on the trails. I could keep it on at all times.
Yeah, if you do the SMOD the bypass, you definitely want to put a cooler on it to make a cooler that kicks on at certain temps.
Right. So I'm sorry, Danny. Go ahead. Daytona Super Hype Nova. He had a question there. Is the 3.8 liter that they're putting in the 2020 related to the GTR engine at all? And I'm going to tell you that is not related to the GTR engine. My understanding is it's still basically the what is the VQ engine, right, Danny?
VQ40, yeah. VQ40.
It's basically a VQ40.
About this, right?
Do what?
You had a long conversation with Tim about this.
I did. We did talk to pickup trucks and SUVs, and you go back a couple episodes, you'll find that one. And I know the video is kind of horrible on that one, guys. I apologize for it, but the audio is good, and it's a good listen. Tim is very knowledgeable, and actually has a 2020 sitting in his driveway right now. Ronald, thank you, dude. Once again, man, you're too kind. And thank you for the comment about the background. But yeah, my understanding is it's still part of the VQ series family, and it's just a lot lighter. Tim was telling me that he thought the truck was actually 250 pounds lighter than the previous version, even though tow rating wise they're calling it heavier, so they can get into that 6,000 pounds, so they can call it a commercial vehicle, so they can bypass some of the BS. And yeah, no, is my understanding, and honestly, and I believe Tim said it was still part of the VQ series, but till Nissan, I'm going to say it's speculation right now, but I'm 90% sure that they're considering it part of the VQs. Let's see, what else we got here. Danny, you see anything popping in on there that you need to comment on?
Nothing, just another shout out to Ronald, or one of our best fans out there.
Right. Oh, and speaking of that, Ronald, I want to say thank you for all the support you've done, whether it be on Patreon or here. and you definitely deserve a special shout out. But thanks to you guys watching these videos, and believe just by liking these things, it does help. It helps move us up into analytics and all that, and new people find us that way. But it's helped fund. We're getting a new gaming computer so we can stream again and do it the right way. We're Danny, and if we have a guest on, there'll be no deterioration of the video or anything. And it's all a part of you guys supporting us. So once again, Ronald, the super chats are awesome, guys. I do appreciate those and the stickers and all that. But just as helpful is by liking the videos when you watch them. Watch time is a big thing for us, Danny.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel you on that. That's one of the things on my channel. I don't put enough videos out to get the watch time up to where I need to be to start making money off of it. But watch time is huge, and you guys hopping in here and chatting with us is a big deal.
We got Brady Overly on here, Danny.
Oh, Brady. Hey, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Croy McCready. He said he's torquing down some beadlocks. I know all too well how monotonous and terrible that job is.
Oh, you mean Crocs?
I'm gonna drink to that guy.
Cheers to you, Crocs. I call him Crocs because I just find it more interesting than actually calling him his right name. Let's see. We got Hill for review. Allow that one. Oh, Danny handled that one. Let's see. New Jersey. Yeah, man. That's what we're here for, dude. We don't claim to be the end-all, be-all knowledge of Nissan, but we do like to share what we have. And if we don't know it, we can go find it for you, I guarantee you. So help spread the word.
Dang. Daytona Super Hyper, 425K on his Titan.
Oh, wow.
I'm a fan of instead of doing like a full weird crazy training flush, I'm a fan of just replacing the filter and drain the fluid, replace the filter, put new trans oil in. What that does is it gets like 60% maybe. I want to say.
Yeah, you never want to do a flush. If you don't do a flush at 60 to 100K, don't ever do a flush. That's been my understanding. I had a racer tell me that. He's like, when you flush them, you just awaken little particles of things that may be lodged where they need to be, and it's never a good thing. Let's see. Elroy Enlock Jeffrey. I have 280,000 miles on my 08 Frontier. Changes the fluid every 75K, which is what you exactly want to do, man. You know, Danny, the transmission gets sort of forgotten about a lot of times.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of an overlooked thing, and I've been doing a lot of research, I guess you could say, on transmissions and how stout they are and what I need to do to race one of these things. And we'll see. A lot of guys yank transmissions out. They put in a built turbo 400,
right?
Because they usually burn the transmission up. But part of it's going to be torque converter. For race application, torque converters need to be a lot different. So I'm probably going to need to get a race style torque converter with a different lockup range. So yeah, it's one of those things. Trans fluid is an important thing, especially like I was talking about earlier. If you overheat that trans, that fluid is different.
I think for even the shade tree mechanic, I think sometimes it's forgotten about because it is sort of a pain in the ass to do, right? I mean, you got to drop a pan. There's a little filter in there. Sometimes it's a replaceable filter. Sometimes it's just a little mesh. And by the said time, and then you got to go buy the seal for the pan once you drop the pan, and I think that's why it's forgotten sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, people have for the longest time have kind of been able to wrap their heads around engines. You got the bangs, you got the strokes, you got the sucks, you got the blows. But transmissions is more like it's a little bit more voodoo. With all the gears, and it's a little bit more engineering wise. You have to look at it and say, okay, this gear turns that gear, and this gear turns that gear, and for manuals there's synchros, and then the torque converter is like the magic go juice that. It's fluid, but it locks up through passages. That's a whole other magical zoom
right.
stuff.
Well,
so, it's a little bit scarier to kind of like tinker with.
Yeah. Brady Overly said he is actually flying. He's on a plane flying back to Ohio because he was at Shadow Wolf Manufacturing. Danny, you want to tell the people what Shadow Wolf is?
Shadow Wolf, man. Talk about waiting for this awesome company to pop out, and because we've kind of known that they had been doing, that they had a lot of stuff in the works for a while now, but they were doing excessive testing before they wanted to come out and start debuting products. So,
right. Unlike some of the big dogs out there, man, they actually test their product before they release it.
Yeah, that's our good buddy. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on it right now.
Nestor Camacho.
Nestor Camacho, who, you know, a little background on Nestor is, you know, he had a two-wheel drive first gen Frontier,
Mm-hmm.
and he basically took apart a four-wheel drive. Basically took a transfer case, slapped it on, and turned it into a four-wheel drive. And then from there, he drove that for a while. And then he ended up he ended up solid axle swapping that truck, and that was a beautiful truck. I mean, really well put together.
Yep. And
he just did it all by himself in his garage. You know.
Well, he is an engineer. He's an engineer by trade, so you know it's not like some guy out there just with learning what a screwdriver is and decides to reinvent the front axle there.
But not all engineers are mechanics.
That is true. That is true.
I learned that as a BMW mechanic. Drink.
Shots. But yeah, so Shadow Wolf is the guys. We posted a picture of the Frontier that you've seen, the solid axle swap Frontier, on our pages on Instagram and Facebook. And they are a company that's bringing out the solid axle kit, much like what Calamini did for the first gen trucks. Shadow Wolf's really been developing because nobody's really came up with a kit. I think there's been a lot of solid axle Gen 2 trucks, but nobody's wanted to put the time into to work the ABS out or to just the little bugs that you would get from it. And so Shadow Wolf came out. It's been about a year and a half ago. If you guys look, if you go back 2017, 18, somewhere in there, I released a video where we're at Windrock. And the one silver Gen 1 that you see was, that's Nestor, and he was testing out his kit, which supposedly, Danny, he's been able to make work for a Gen 1 or 2.
Wow, that's awesome. And
yeah.
If you're not following him, he just started his social media accounts. And so for Instagram, it's shadow_wolf_MFG manufacturing. So go check his Instagram out immediately because there's gonna be some rad stuff coming out. Obviously, JR's Frontier is on there. They just took it out and did some testing with it. Or they just took it out and stretched his legs after it got a solid axle swap, and it looks really, really good.
Yeah, I believe JR's truck was kind of the last one. He'd done a couple Xterras, and he wanted to get a Frontier under his belt just to make sure the kit worked perfectly. And I know they did some testing this previous weekend. And then, Danny, I'm going on an adventure with JR to go pick this truck up. So we're going to sneak into Florida. And we're going to pick up the truck, and I'm going to do a walk around. We're going to actually spend a day off-roading that truck and then bring it back to Tennessee. So it's going to be a good time.
Nice. Well, bring your zoom lens, Dave. You're not going to be able to get 6 feet within anything. So
I'll definitely do that. Let's see if we got any more questions. I've not been paying too much attention. I apologize, guys. We've had a lot of good news coming out.
A lot of Marty and Daytona talking about changing that transmission fluid. You gotta remember when changing transmission fluid, if you drop the pan and or pull the, I can't remember how Titans work, but if you drop the drain plug or if you pull the transmission pan, one or the other, you're gonna get the fluid out that's sitting in the pan. The torque converter still has a massive amount of fluid in it, and that's why they say you can drop the pan, drain the oil, put a new filter in, put the pan back on and fill it up from there, and that's how you keep from replacing all the that's one of the ways to do it. A full flush runs it through and it pressurizes, and it takes a machine and it pressurizes the system and pumps it through.
Right. Well, yeah, I've done the poor man's version way of it, but and I've had one vehicle done properly, and honestly, I've got an Xterra sitting out there, my 2000. I couldn't have told you when the last time that thing was ever changed. I know I've never changed it, and it's got 260,000 miles on it. So at this point, it's one of those. Well, I'm gonna ignore it till it quits working.
There you go.
And luckily, the transmissions for those trucks are pretty cheap anymore. So, So Danny, Nissan Juke news, buddy. So we have a video dropping tomorrow on the channel, and I know Juke's not the most exciting thing, but we chose it because it was just something interesting. And so I put a new exhaust on this thing, a new axle back exhaust, Danny.
I know, and
a few phone calls to you to get it done.
I already got to hear it, and it sounds freaking rad.
It is pretty rad, man. I'm quite surprised how well it sounds, and I'm quite surprised how just making that change the car sounds like you think, oh, you got to delete the cats or change out the mid pipe of it, but no, like you literally just putting this axle back exhaust on there made it's a deeper tone. It's not droney, so we took it out going down the road thinking, okay, high RPMs is just going to kind of be annoying. It's barely noticeable. I mean, you hear it, obviously. It's a change for the better, but I'm excited to see if it really frees up the engine at all, because they do claim, they claim there's a horsepower gain by switching, exhaust, but is there really? I don't know.
Yeah, you might. I mean, there might be a negligible amount. I mean, turbo cars are a little bit more conducive to flow, so you might see a little bit more. I mean, and it's limited by how much the ECU can
yep.
do on its own,
right?
Without telling it to do more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. So that was the exhaust was the first part of the Juke, and then we're moving on to the cold air intake and the blow off valve. And I may change the piping for the turbo down the road too. I'm still not. For as long as I'm probably going to have this car, I don't know if there's to spend that kind of money, because you're talking another $400 or $500 for that piping. Am I in the year I'm going to own this car? Is it going to make that much of a difference? So I'm kind of torn on that, but I do have some word out on some G35 wheels for the car. I haven't told you about that, so I found a deal on some, and now bummer is it's a more narrow rim on the front versus back, but once again, I'm going to have this car for about a year. It'll move on to somebody else.
It's not a big deal. I mean, are they going to be wider than what you have, or is the tires concerned?
We got Shadow Wolf himself here, Danny.
Dang!
Nestor's in the house. Mecha 018 is Nestor, Mr. Shadow Wolf. Let's see. Daytona, what may swap the Juke? What are we getting at there, man? I actually just, I'm swapping Titan for the Juke currently, which is a sad day, Danny. The Juke or the Titan goes back this week.
Oh, sad day. Well, you got a lot of miles out of that thing and a lot of love. It was a good truck for you, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, definitely. I put just under 41,000 miles on it right now. I don't know if I'll get 41, because we really, since Kelly's been for the past month stuck at home, the truck, all of our cars aren't getting driven at all. So the it's kind of a bummer because you pay for those miles. So I wanted to get the full 45 out of it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the Juke's, it's such a fun little build, and I mean, it's like for you, and we talked about this in length offline, but it's a great little car to just go experience, and we'll just call it, I don't want to call it a side chick, but it's kind of like dating that weird chick,
Right.
Like, go have fun with her, hang out. You guys both know that there's nothing long term involved here. But you're going to have a good time. You're going to have some good experiences together, and just enjoy the moment with the Juke. And as far as I'm concerned, the Juke isn't the best vehicle ever. It's not. There's nothing about it that is perfect. There's nothing about it that is timeless. I think the Juke is just an exciting, fun car that came out for a while. That's kind of cool. It's quirky, it's weird, it's fun, and for you, it's a great thing to just mod it up a little bit, do some mods, see how it runs on a track, etc.
Yeah, and, I like
find something else to have fun with.
I like quirky vehicles, Dan. So that was part of the fun of the Juke, and I've always liked the Juke. I know the Juke is either you like it or you don't. There is zero middle ground with that car.
That's true. And you know what? The only way that Juke would be better if it was bright yellow.
Well,
it would be the perfect Dave car.
oh yeah, or orange, a bright orange.
Yeah.
Which I'm tempted to wrap it something like that, but I think Kelly would kill me. But I'm so I've been watching a bunch of YouTube reviews on it from back in 2011 through 15, kind of the heyday of that car, and I'm amazed at how many journalists initially crap on it about, it's a weird kind of the shape of it and stuff, but once they get behind the wheel, they all love the driving experience of the car.
Yeah, and like I could see, there's cars like that too that you're like, I'm not really into this at all, but the second you sit in them and drive them, you're like, all right, my mind's changed.
Yep.
I will say, like, I had a touch of this, and I don't want to say my mind's changed, but when I went on that Rogue Overland adventure and I saw that Jeep,
the Gladiator.
The Gladiator. And I saw what I could do, and, it was on 37s, and I've talked to some people. I warmed to it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
and
that's a big deal for you to say, because I know you hate the Gladiator.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge deal for me to say. I warmed to it.
Right.
But you're totally right on. That's the same thing with the car.
Right. Let's see. Andrew says, bring it to Atlanta. Oh, the Juke is coming to Atlanta in a month or so. Once I get the final parts on it, I just got to make the date, and Spencer and the guys are going to get their hands on the Juke to tune it for me. And everything I know about it, these cars are very tunable, so it does, like, it's factory, they say 188. Nissan usually underrates their horsepower by at least 5 to 10 horsepower. So the exhaust and the cold air intake should help waking it up. I'm hoping, I would like to hit 200 horse in that little car.
Yeah, that's I mean, okay, so let's compare. Do you know how much the Juke weighs, out of curiosity?
About 2,800 pounds, I believe.
So that's quick. I mean, in comparison, so the Z I just bought, the 300Z, right? It's got the 3.0 NA motor.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing's rated at I think it was 220 from factory or something like that. So let's just say it's 180 right now, 190,
right.
As it is right now. It still feels really quick, and that car weighs like 3,300 pounds roughly.
Okay.
So I'm sure that Juke feels really quick, and when you're that light too, you feel way more nimble, around turns, and if you lower it a little bit, you're going to just drop that center of gravity a little bit more, and it's got big wheel wells, so you can put a big wide tire in it. And stuff. So it can be really fun, I'm sure.
Let's see. So Croy is he wants me to wrap it orange. Joe Taylor says red alert. Let's see. There was a question before this I need to get to. They want me to put 100 shot of NOS in it, which I don't think that little car could handle.
You can handle it, Dave.
I think there is something weird. There is something weird about the motor. So the first 2 years of that motor supposedly is better than the ending years of it, but the ending years can handle a little shot of NOS from things I've read. Let's see. All right, so I didn't miss anything. All right, so Daytona Super Hype Nova. Jukes are weird, but they are faster than they look and fun to drive. The fastest car we had at the time, besides the GTR, is 370s, but I think the Juke might give a 370 a run for its money. Well, I don't know. The 350 370s are kind of pigs in a sense. They probably weigh a little bit more than they should or need to, and so I don't. The only thing a bummer about this car, if it was a rear-wheel drive car, Danny, I would never get rid of this car. That's how much I like it.
Yeah, if it was an all-wheel drive car as a stick without the CVT, I mean, that would be so much fun.
Yep.
That thing would just boogie, dude.
Dude, there was a guy, I watched a video today, there was a guy hitting almost 12s on drag racing it.
Really?
Yes. He had his little engine over 300 horsepower.
Just probably put a big turbo in it?
No, it was the factory turbo.
Oh,
I forget what all he upgraded, but it was pretty crazy how much power.
I'm sure it was race gas and just as much flow as he could get through that turbo.
Yeah, but I watched the video. He was putting a new intercooler and all that in it, so he was he thought he could hit 11 in it. Let's see.
That's wild.
That is wild.
surprisingly fast.
Oh, Daytona. Somebody asked about my Juke. Is it the Nismo or is it no? Mine is just a SV. So my Juke, it's just it's not a base, but it's not the high end. You know, the Nismo RS was the high end, and I think it was rated at 215 somewhere in there, 220 horsepower, and But my goal right now is if I can hit 200 horsepower in that car before I get rid of it, I'd be super happy with it. But let's see, what else we got here? Danny, we talked to Tim this week about that 2020 Frontier, and we'll jump back to that a little bit. Was there anything about that conversation that sort of stood out to you of like, oh man, because he started talking about it's noticeably quicker.
Yeah, I was how do I put this in words? So I was really thinking that it was going to be a VQ motor.
Right.
And from my understanding, it's probably a VQ bottom end, slightly different stroke with a new head to get the direct inject.
Right.
You know, and a different intake. But I am a huge fan of the VQ40. I think that it is a killer motor. I other than, you know, maybe timing chains that might stretch at like 200,000 miles or 180,000, you know, even then they may or may not, depending on how hard you push them, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that motor is a really great motor.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they're basing it off that motor, they've already had so much testing, so much information off that motor, that tweaking it to get that power out, I feel like this is going to be a really kick-ass power plant for them. So I'm excited to see where it goes. You know, 300 horsepower. That's awesome.
Well, the thing that stood out to me so far between the couple channels I've seen get early hands on it is that it is getting good MPGs. Like I know. I think it was city. It was almost identical to what it was rated for, but on highway it was 22, something like that. Or the combined was the same, but highway was a lot better.
Which I think it really needed, because I think the VQ40 on highway didn't really. I mean, it's rough because it didn't really get great highway gas mileage. Do
you think that might have been from the transmission though, holding it back?
Yeah, you know, it's hard to say. I modified my truck so quickly that I barely got to play with gas mileage in a stock form. I was on 33s within, I don't know, 6 months of owning my truck, and, you know, swapping in 3 or 4 different lifts, because at the time when I bought my truck, I was testing out different lifts because I wanted to really feel how people, I wanted to be able to be, you know, give good suggestions on lifts. So I went through kind of like, you know, if I was to buy that truck and I was a new guy and I wanted to put a little lift on it, and I ran through the gamut of lifts pretty quickly. But I off-roaded with some entry-level shocks, with some, you know, coilovers, and then, you know, a little upper control arm, and then I type swapped. I went through the whole thing. So I didn't quite get to the gas mileage. However, I do know that, you know, the second I put 33s on, my highway MPGs were severely lacking. And again, I'm Pro 4X, a little bit different gearing than a standard truck, but it's exciting to see that it's getting good. You know, I would say that that's good gas mileage. You know, we'll see how it plays out with, you know, when it's lifted, when it's got a little bit more load on it.
Yeah.
If the transmission can really handle that, I think that'll be great.
Well, you know, I noticed with my Pro 4X, my 12 that I had, I would get, at the time I was working about 25 miles each way. Not too far, but enough to help the mileage. You know, it wasn't stop and go traffic. I was on the highway. And I noticed in stock form, I could get 20 miles per gallon. I could probably do it just a little bit better. And I always pay attention when I'm changing out my tires. I really research the weight of each tire, because rolling resistance is a big thing to get these cars moving down the path. But I put of course the Pro 4X still has like a 31.5-inch tire. You know, it's not big, but it's not tiny either. So I put the BF Goodrich KO2s the exact same size. So what is it, a 1675, 265. And my mileage stayed the same. And it wasn't till I put the level 8 MK6 rim on it with a little bit wider back spacing that pushed it out a little bit. And I started dropping to 18. As soon as that tire came out of that wheel well a little bit is when I noticed that the miles per gallon started.
Yeah. So I played a lot with aerodynamics on trucks is huge. I mean, obviously our trucks, trucks in general are not aerodynamic whatsoever.
Right.
But whether I ran with a rooftop tent on the top of the truck, I ran one sitting in the bed right below the roof line. I ran one with it running above the truck in the back, and you put a rooftop tent on that thing.
Oh God!
You're gonna lose like 3 or 4 miles per gallon.
We went to Moab that time, and we drove. God, I think back from Moab, I think I was averaging driving it back was like 12.5 per. But we were weighted down pretty good. But and you even had the smaller rooftop tent that was kind of tucked a little bit, and it still was like a dog.
Cool. Yeah. Real quick, Dave. V1 just hopped in and obviously they're looking very, very, very closely at the new truck. They're doing rad stuff.
I know Spencer there's been hitting Nissan up for information.
Yeah, so he said variable cam timing on both intake and exhaust. The exhaust looks like it's a tried and true hydraulic. The intake appears to be electronically controlled, like the newer VR car. That's interesting to see electronically controlled. Intake, which that's really cool because it might be a quicker response with electronically controlled timing. So I'm racking my brain right now trying to think of how electronically controlled timing is concerned. If it's an electric, I'm guessing it's an electric motor that changes it instead of an electrically controlled solenoid. So that's really like Z1. Heads up, guys! I'm so nerdy about this. Like I'm literally gonna stop as soon as I get off this live. I'm gonna hop on and I'm gonna start Googling this like crazy because I nerd out on that stuff so hard.
Oh yeah. Rumor has it you were a BMW mechanic.
Cool. That's really cool to see. I mean, again, that's speculation on his part by probably looking at it, but that's cool.
Right. Well, rumor has it you were a BMW mechanic, so you were used to working on turds all the time, so you probably do have to geek out on this kind of stuff.
Not turds. New technology that you use that comes out way before everybody else. So BMWs had variable valve timing way back.
Right.
So I remember when they had they had electric motors that controlled the valve lift. When that came out, that was way before other people's stuff. So this is the kind of stuff that geek out on. So
right. Let's see. So Joe keeps asking. Sorry, Joe. We got talking cars there. What happens if the 2021 Frontier is a flop for Nissan? For one, the truck's not going to be a flop. I talked to my inside source this weekend. And we've talked about the picture I have of the vehicle, and Danny, of course, has seen the vehicle. We've seen the most kick-ass version you can imagine of this vehicle. So the little spy photo I have is the most kick-ass version. So I was talking to my source this weekend that has seen the vehicle, and we were going over my picture versus for the actual production vehicle, and he was like, it's not as aggressive, but everything you've seen, he said, Dave, everything you've seen is there. So I was super pumped, and I called Danny about it. I was so excited. The truck won't be a flop. I mean, they would have to literally make it look like for the truck to be a flop, they would have to imagine this, a Volkswagen Beetle that you cut off the back window and made a bed. That's as bad as it would have to be a flop for Nissan, because the Frontier sells. The Frontier is always sold. Now, it's not doing Tacoma numbers, but I guarantee you this one is like 2 designs ahead of where the current Frontier is. So if you can imagine, say the Navara is the 3rd gen in your mind, think of this truck as the next progression from that, and it's the 4th gen. Would you agree with that, Danny?
I totally agree with it. It is kind of like they came out with the Navara, and then they said, you know what, we need something beefier. We need something that shows it's almost like, well, they built this car specifically, or this truck specifically for the American market, because they knew that Ford Rangers and Navaras weren't what American people are looking for.
Right.
We need something that looks more tough. We need something that can handle more, a little bit more abuse.
Right.
And so that's what they did, and I think part of the changeover of leadership caused some of that view to go away and come back, and cause some of the hiccups, and obviously maybe the money that was spent or whatnot. But at the same time, from what we've seen and from what Dave's described to me, I think it's going to be a kick-ass truck, and I'm really excited for it to come out. I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed with it.
No,
and the people who are disappointed, they're going to be looking for some Honda Ridge lines. That's what I think.
The only early bummer I think will be for this vehicle is trying to lift it, and the only reason that is because you'll have to crack the sensors on it, all the safety sensors somehow. And I've heard of a way to do it, and I can't think of it off the top of my head right now. But the sensors and all of the trucks, the newer trucks, have had a little issue with that. I want to say Toyota, the guys with Toyota, they were really having an issue with it early on. But that's the only bummer. And my plan, guys, I've said this. As soon as that truck, Nissan says, day one, here's the date they're going to be at showrooms, the first dealer that gets it, guess who's going to be at that dealership signing paperwork? Me. Because it's just part of the plan of the show. We want to be the first to get our hands on that truck, and we want to be the first that basically rips the truck apart and makes it cooler.
Yeah, I agree. I know the new 4Runner, they had, all the active cruise control stuff. It took maybe a year for companies to kind of reverse engineer everything to make sure that all the features and whatnot kind of still worked once you did all that cool stuff. But I think that the Nissan aftermarket's come a long ways from when it was just a couple guys just doing some stuff with Nissans. So I think and there's so many smart guys out there now modding vehicles. I don't think it's going to be very hard. And I'm not going to lie, Dave, we are going to work our asses off to make sure that those people that are engineers that we know are reverse engineering this stuff. And I swear to you, I'll push everybody I know to make sure and get their hands on them and work through it. And, if I have to buy one and bring it somewhere and have them figure it out, I will. And let me just say this, Dave. Z1 Off-Road coming into the game and starting to do stuff for these trucks, it's a huge deal. They're a big company. They've worked with so many different Nissans. They know Nissan systems inside and out. They've been around since the 300Z days. They started doing stuff for 300Zs back in the day. They were selling used parts, and then they started putting stuff in cars, and they were just doing stuff off forums.
Hey, Nestor asked me when am I going to bring the Gen 3 into Sasset, and it's like, Nestor, that's going to have to be a free Sats on that one.
Yeah, right.
Let's see, Jeff Farley. Why is Nissan letting Hyundai Kona continue where the Juke left off instead of doing it themselves? The Kicks is a few steps back, and the UK's 2020 Juke is even worse. Couple things on it. The Juke it sold the first couple years. It sold pretty well. It wasn't a hit by any means. Nissan did awaken a segment with that car, and everybody else was a little late to follow in. The Toyota, we talked about in the last podcast, the Toyota HRV or whatever they call it, that's basically a Juke. They can't get rid of those things. They're sitting on lots. They're where they import them. They're sitting on piers. That car it's a hard car to sell because for the price you pay for it, so the Juke was like 20 to 25,000 new. Say now a couple years later, you're talking probably 28,000 is where it would be. You can either get a nice Altima for that price, or you can jump right into a nice Rogue. So unless you just exactly know what the Juke is and you want that fun sporty thing, It's a tough sell. And then yeah, Kicks is basically a Juke. I mean, yeah, except we talked about this in many podcasts back, where so Nissan pulled the Juke out of their U.S. market because they were bringing in the Qashqai, which is the Rogue Sport.
Right.
The if you look at the horsepower of each vehicle, the Juke kind of outdid everything horsepower wise, and it was a sales point of it was a point of contention for dealerships of people would go, well, why does this little thing have much more horsepower than this? They like to streamline everything. They want the Kicks now is like 115 horse or something. It's something really lame. And then the Rogue Sport is 125 horsepower, and then the Rogue is 148 or something close to that. So it's a horsepower game. What sort of pushed the Juke out, and then they knew they were changing Sentra too, and the Juke shares the same motor as the Sentra, the Sentra Turbo, and you know that it's just a matter of you got to sell, you got to move sheet metal to continue making them. And I agree, I sort of like the European Juke, the second gen, but it's got a weak, it's like a 1.3 liter 4-cylinder in it. The horsepower is way down, no turbo. I don't know. It looks cool, but it's the insides of it look like the Ultima and everything else. There's nothing unique about that.
The Kicks is a kid's car. It's something the parents would buy for their kid. That you know, it's like the Honda. It's like a new era of Honda Civic.
Or like the Neon SRT.
Yeah, no, it's not a Neon. No, I would totally disagree. The Neon. Oh, you're talking about not the SRT part.
I mean, but it was sporty. Like what Dodge was doing with the Neon SRT was just like a high horsepower. You get nothing else. You might get a nice radio, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm kind of responding to Z1 and you at the same time because he said the Kicks is nothing good of what the Juke did, and I kind of agree. It doesn't have any excitement factor. It doesn't have any quirkiness, but it's a Honda Civic for Nissan in this new crossover world.
Right.
It really, I like it for what it is, but I don't think it's exciting. I think the Rogue Sport should have been kicked to the curb, and they should have just come out with the Kicks and saved all that money.
Well, let's do this, Danny. I've been saving this topic for a rainy day of a video I was going to film, but let's talk about this. So Nissan, they have and I've hinted on this on a few of these videos now. Nissan has a way of like when you know they've been cheap. Like their profit rates for dealership is like nil to none. They're the worst in the business for dealer profitability. They and Nissan themselves, they make money, but it's not like they're sitting on piles of cash. And like when Ford wants to redevelop the F-150, they write $1 billion check like it's nothing. And to develop a car is $1 billion. I kid you not. I've seen the numbers. It's $1 billion to develop a brand new generation car. So the car needs to sell, and it needs to be there for at least 5 years. Nissan, being kind of a cheap company, that must be why I like them, because I'm a cheap dude. When they can't afford to bring in a next generation of something, they just pluck something from their European or South American markets. And if you look at the Qashqai, we'll bring it in as the Rogue Sport to sort of replace the Juke. Well, that didn't sell well. So guess what they did? They brought in the Kicks, which was designed for the Brazilian market. That's the design of that car was strictly for the Brazilian market. We're going to try to plug that hole back with where the Juke was. They seem to have a bad habit of just kind of like America anymore. You know, America used to be the place where we got all the first things, like the most kick-ass cars. We got them before the Globe did. And now America's getting to be sort of the leftovers of the Globe.
Yeah, I agree, David. It's like they're trying to figure out what works. I think they had this amazing, I think Nissan is still in business right now because of the Rogue or Murano, whichever. I believe it's the Murano was the first one. I can't, correct me if I'm wrong. But that CUV market, they killed it, and they made so much money. They're still doing really well with it, but they really started pushing that really hard, and they did so well with it. And then it's almost like they didn't know how to capitalize on it, and they just they kind of they didn't diversify as much as they should have. They just kept kind of coming out with the same platform but different. Trying to they milked that cow for all it was worth, and when the cow finally started not producing so much milk anymore, they started trying to just yank on every other cow they possibly could from every other farmer.
Yep.
Terrible analogy, but at the same time, you kind of understand.
No, but you're right. They have a hyper focus, and like when the Rogue took off, like the Rogue sold well. The first gen sold okay. The second gen shot. Like all of a sudden, and we were coming out of the recovery. People wanted SUVs. They didn't want cars anymore. And Altima was the cow for Nissan, and they were hyper focused on it. All of a sudden, the Rogue takes off. They start hyper focusing only on that, like you're saying, and only worried about that. We got to keep, we got to sell. I think that's 180, 190,000 they sell a year of that, and just hyper focus on that. And then you lose sight of these other things, so they just start plucking from other markets, going, well, this is popular there. It'll be popular here.
Yeah, I agree. And so, lost my train of thought. I had something important to say, and then I started typing a reply to somebody.
Are you talking about milking cows? Are you there, Dan?
Yeah, I'm still here. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, so I need you to kick back in.
That's all right. So let's see. We got some. I mean, and that's just a random mine, and it does. If you start looking at some of the cars we get, like kicks, that doesn't make sense in this markets. Why do they need another tiny car? I know it's based on the Versa platform, but I don't know. Let's see. Daytona Super Hyper Nova says, bring back the Xterra. Ooh, we did a video on that a couple weeks ago, Dan.
Yeah, and we've kind of beat that to death as far as what we think.
This whole show for the 5 years we've done it.
Yeah, we've talked about that since it went away, and there's nobody that wants the Xterra back more than me. I swear to you, I would trade my Z for an Xterra.
I want the Terra. I want that over here, and I want to call it.
That would be a great car.
Like we argue about, you think it should be called the Xterra. I think they should call it the Patrol or Patrol Sport. Is what I think.
I don't. Yeah. Again, we could hash that out again and yell at each other until we're blue in the eyes. But yeah, obviously, there's so many of us that are Xterra fans, and there's a ton out there that don't get the screen time and the love that they should. But we all want that, and it doesn't need to be said anymore. And I'm sure Z1 Off-Road there would love for an Xterra to come back, seeing as how they're building a new off-road division. Let's see. Joe Taylor asked Nissan to give you a new picture of the new Pathfinder. Joe, look. I will say this. Normally, I crap all over Motor One as lazy journalism. Their third gen Frontier or whatever they're calling that monstrosity thing is just garbage. It's not even clever. Look at if you search as far as the color or not the color, as far as the actual vehicle, it's not even close.
Yeah, look at their renderings that they've done of the Rogue and the X-Trail or whatever they call it in the South American market. They're pretty dead on. I've seen some pictures of the car. It's pretty dead on. So they and that gives you an idea too of what the Pathfinder is going to somewhat look like.
Hey Dave, hold on. Daytona Super Hyper says that there was a Rogue convertible.
Oh yeah, the Murano convertible.
Oh, Murano convertible.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm googling right now.
You don't remember? We did a show about this, Danny. The Murano Cabriolet that they sold. They sold maybe 1,500 of them. And
right. Oh my God!
Oh man, so yeah, let me tell you about that car. So that car was developed because somebody in the higher ups of Nissan's wife wanted a convertible, and so literally, this is how that car came to be, and they did that. And now they were having problems with the convertible tops, so the dealers would replace them. But the problem being is the convertible top costs more than the car. So you can have a 5 or whatever, they might be 7 years old now, the oldest or newest one. The top is like $8 or $9 grand, and the car's worth like $4 grand. So it's literally a throwaway car now.
That was one of the most terrible cars I've looked at in a long time.
Yes, it's pretty bad. Danny, we're starting to wind this down. So you had a video drop this past week, and where you put an intake on your truck.
Yeah, I put that badass AFE intake on. Z1 has done some testing on a lot of the intakes for Frontiers, the dyno testing.
Yes,
and,
actual testing.
Actual dyno testing on, and they did quite a few different intakes. I talked to them quite a bit about it, and so I kind of settled on doing the AFE. I love the fit and finish of it, and in my video, I kind of go into depth about it. The one thing I was so pumped about, dude, is that it works. It literally like butts up to my snorkel, and there's like less. There's like a, I don't know, maybe an eighth or a 16th of an inch, where the AFE and the snorkel intake go. I mean, it's not like they're the same company. It just happened that way. So that was one of the pleasant surprises when I put it in. But on top of that, I noticed some really good RPM, different portions of my RPM. You can feel a little bit more pulling on it. It sounds amazing. I noticed that maybe a touch more MPG. It's negligible. But at the same time, and this is another video I'll be dropping this week, I tuned the truck. I put the up-rev tune in it yesterday. And I haven't had a ton of time in the truck, obviously, because I got the Z, so I was driving the Z all weekend.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was sunny yesterday, so I took the T-tops off.
Oh, yeah, this asshole here was sending me pictures of the T-tops out of it. He knows how much I love Zs, and in his Z especially, because it's a manual transmission Z. So you've kind of left that off, too, that it's not a turbo, but it's still manual, so it's still fun to drive. But Danny's being the asshole sending me Marco Polos of like with freaking Van Halen playing in the background. Everything about this car from the late 80s, Danny's got it going on, and I'm like, you asshole, man. Stop it. And you just kept doing it.
Yeah, no, but so the truck hasn't seen a ton of miles once I programmed it, but I got to get some data logs, send it over to Z1. And get some precise tunes, I guess you could say. Make sure that we'll get the air fuel ratios locked in, and make sure that I have we'll have a 93 octane tune and whatnot. But initially, just the basic. I guess it's kind of like a basic performance tune when you do the up rev tune. That it kind of bumps air fuel ratios a little bit for the Frontier. It's kind of it's a basic Frontier tune that you load in.
Right, and you were saying this weekend that it needs a little bit of micromanagement to it, right?
Yeah, so the base tune is set up for if you have a stock Nissan Frontier, you'll put a up rev tune in it, and it'll give you a little juice in there. But I have an intake and an exhaust on it, so I'll go do so. Once you put that base tune in, I'll go and I'll do some pulls and I'll data log with the up rev cable. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll send those data logs over to Z1. They'll take a look at them, and they can set up a couple different tunes for me based on those data logs. They send them back to me. I load those tunes in, and then I'm good to go. As far as you're just fine tuning air fuel ratios and a touch of timing. From my understanding. So that's where I'm at right with that. I did notice with the up rev tune, I have a little bit more right at the top end in the 4,000 to 5,000 range. I can definitely feel some really good top end speed. So the tip end seems a little bit better. So those are like my initial thoughts. I'd like to get a little bit more miles on it before I finish and put my video out, but I'll probably do an initial video with the bass tune, and then I'm gonna I'll go back with Z1 and send some stuff in.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Is the cool thing, and I'm sure, and I know Spencer's watching, and we love Z1 obviously, but the cool thing about it is you can do some digital tuning. Like you can send them in your patterns, what's going on, and they can adjust it and back and forth a little bit. Like the days of them you literally have to take your car somewhere to be tuned, or they're not over, but it's a lot nicer to do it from home, right?
Yeah, and I mean of course, if I was down the street from Z1 or even within 2 hours or something, I'd take my truck there.
You mean like our buddy Andrew?
Yeah, exactly. If they put it on a dyno and they can sit there and run through the tunes and they can really fine tune and polish it up to get you the cleanest tune right there. But at the same time, they can take a lot of that, and it is kind of real world tuning if you send them some logs and they tune it that way. But they've tuned so many trucks and cars that they know what they're doing. They've done so much that I have full confidence in them to be able to look at it and say, okay, he's going to need a little bit more fuel at this RPM, a little bit more air at this. Basically tell the ECU, like, hey, do it right.
Well, so guys, expect that video coming from DeGroot X. If you go over to Danny's channel, if you haven't done it yet, go like and subscribe to his channel. And if you get really bored and you got nothing to do, go play all of his videos. You don't even have to be around. Just go play his videos. You just need some watch time.
Just screw it through.
And let's see. So I got this question from Carlos Ghosn last week, and Joe Taylor's asking it this week. That's awful weird coincidence, but why were the Titan Adventure people fired? And I won't say they were fired because we know those guys real well. I don't think I think their contracts were coming up. Plus, Nissan right now, we all know even before the Corona thing happened, they were sort of pulling back, and they were starting to. Our second Titan Adventure we went on, it was mostly Nissan. It wasn't a different company running the show. It was literally Nissan in-house sort of doing it. I think what the company that was handling some of that stuff was basically guiding Nissan. Here's how you do it, and then slowly letting Nissan take it over. That doesn't mean that company still won't be a part of it somehow. It's just they're not going to be as big a part, I think, as they used to be.
Yeah, they're cinching their belt. I think they want to have more control over every cent that's probably spent. So I'm sure that has a massive amount to do with it.
Yeah, because
they're replanning the whole thing.
Word had gotten to me that Nissan, even with their auto shows, was really going to scale back. Like New York, which would have been last 2 weeks ago, I believe, that they weren't going to have a big presence there. And I'd heard that even like Detroit, all the majors, they really weren't going to have a major presence at. In Chicago, Nissan was the weakest. They were the weakest manufacturer at Chicago. The displays were, me and Danny both had personally seen the displays. They had them at the Titan Adventures, and they had some of it at the Texas State Fair for the Titans. It's just you gotta start pulling every penny back that you can, and sometimes the little side companies, they don't pull much from Nissan, but do you think the management's going to cut their pay, or are they going to cut somebody else's pay? So, and that's the automotive world. I think Spencer over at Z1 would probably agree with that one, that they're ebbs and flows. When the companies are doing good, they don't mind spending some money. When they're not doing so good, they're not spending a lot of money. And I will say, and Marty can agree with this, Danny, when we went to that second Titan, the first Titan Adventure was my favorite because we got a lot of time and we got to do a lot of cool. We were in Wyoming, where me and you have never been, and we got to do a lot of cool things that we'd not done before. But the second one, when they brought in 2 rounds of press, then they brought a round of enthusiasts, then they brought a round of dealers. Dude, I bet they spent a couple $1 million on that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at that. The first one was a test, and I think they kind of went all out with that to kind of show what they can do and give the idea of what kind of like a lifestyle type thing that they can do. A lifestyle event thing that they can do. And it was more of like hey, this is the kind of things that we would like to do. This is how it went, et cetera, et cetera. And so I agree. The second one, I mean, for us personally, it was a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
There was some rad stuff that they did still. So I mean, it was very, very slightly less awesome.
Right. And I'll be honest, we were told that when Frontier drops, they're going to do a Frontier Adventure. Like they're planning for these things for the off-road truck market.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a good idea. I think they're just. again, in times like these, and I think, it says something to be said for, cars like the Juke and stuff like that. I think when a dealer has a little bit more, whether it's liquidity or they have better future income possibilities, they're going to be able to play around with some, with some crazy vehicles and stuff like that. But right now we're in a situation where, everybody's pulling back, and they're gonna go with what works. They're not gonna test. They're not gonna push the boundaries as far as I think everybody would want them to.
Right. Well, guys, once again, I have hats coming, so they'll be on the website soon. As soon as I get them, I've only ordered a small amount. Between a Juke that's out there burning money through Z1, or B, having to buy $1,000 computer I wasn't expecting to buy this year for these streams. But these streams are popular, and we like doing them. This is basically the podcast now. We're going to still continue the audio side. I've got some interviews I want to continue to do, long form interviews. But this is me and Danny's podcast now. This is how pretty much we're doing it. Wouldn't you agree, Dan?
Yeah, you know what? This is we get so much more possibility of feedback, and we found that YouTube has just so much more to offer for all of you guys and for us. And then we can, we wanted to do YouTube anyways for for a for people that talk about cars and stuff like that. It's a visual thing, and we do so much stuff with cool cars. I mean, there's art to cars,
right?
And it's hard to just put that into words. And so, bringing everything to you guys through YouTube shows you guys how cool the stuff is that we have.
Mm-hmm.
What we want to do. And then, being able to chat with you guys like this, it helps us to just, know what you guys like, know what you guys want to hear about and whatnot. And,
right. And
us to do immediate feedback.
And like with the new backgrounds you're seeing and stuff, we plan on being, especially once I get a computer that can actually handle all this, we'll have interactive backgrounds where we can get on the web and start doing, live stuff. We can show you direct feedback where we can find things for you and just this is kind of it. I mean, we're a car. It's hard to be an audio show about automotive. Like, people want to see things. So, but for I think both of us, we've had a lot of fun, like being creative with our own individual videos.
Yeah, I'm dude. Just the fact that it has kind of pushed me to say, okay, you know what? How am I going to bring great content on YouTube?
Yep.
And how do I align that with something that I love? And obviously, I'm a car guy, a truck guy to the very core of my being. To my wife's.
I think your wife is a car person too, though, because she's always wanting a different SUV.
Yeah, but you know what? It all came together when I got this 300 because I wanted this 300 so bad. And it's in my driveway, and I took my wife out for a drive yesterday, and I had the best time.
Did she enjoy it?
The fastest in the world, but you know what? I polished the car up. The car is absolutely effing stunning, and I had so much fun. Just like I literally drove to the store and back. I had so much fun just doing that, and that's what I wanted to get back to that, and I want to bring that in my YouTube channel, and I want to bring that to our YouTube channel together.
Yep.
What cars do for you, they make you giddy. You get a new car, and the sun's out. It's been raining for a week here. The sun came out, and I polished the car, and I pulled the T-tops off, and my wife and I drove to the store. But the drive to the store was the best drive I've had
Isn't that crazy?
Going to Moab or something.
I mean, me and you we love off-roading. Don't get us wrong for the car thing here. But there's something about, I've been in a truck, I said it in this week's video coming up, that I think I've been in a truck for, God, let's see, my Honda Element was the last thing that sort of wasn't a truck. So that was 05, 06, 07 somewhere. So I've been in a basically...
Don't tell people about that, Dave.
Do what?
Don't tell people that you own an Element.
Oh, man, besides the Juke, I will say that's one of the most fun vehicles I've ever drove.
I don't want to hear about it.
But something about getting it behind something that's just a little sporty, like my Juke is not, by no means is it a race car, and it'll never be a race car. Your Z, yeah, you could spend $10,000 on it and make it something crazy, but just being behind the wheel, like with a manual transmission, I don't know. There's just something about making the car shift and pushing in the clutch that it's exciting.
Yeah, and let me just tell you, my first truck that I got was a stick, and I've had maybe one or two since then. This is the first car that I've owned that's a stick. I've driven quite a few cars that are sticks, a couple fast ones here and there, whether it's a friend's or whatever.
Right.
But I think the only other car, me personally, that I've owned was a 528 BMW, like a 93 or something like that, and it was a manual. It was a beautiful car, but at the same time, this is the second car I've ever owned, and I like, and I kind of go over this in my video, I like having something that I can shine up and know that I'm not going to drag it through a bunch of trees and rocks.
Right.
It's nice having something nice that I know can stay nice. My truck, every time I polish and wax it, I know it's not going to stay nice. It's going to get the shit beat out of it, and it's like climbing up a hill and knowing you're never going to make it to the top when I wax my red truck.
Yeah. And I know you've already got some mods planned for this car, and one was just sort of oh, I'm doing that? Okay.
I have a really good friend who owns a rad shop over here in Simi Valley, and I've done a lot of stuff with him. I work there sometimes with him, doing some trucks and fixing cars and stuff like that. And he ordered me some really rad stuff for it. So I'll be excited when that stuff comes in. I don't want to blow my load too quick.
Right.
But it's some rad stuff, and in truth, he ordered it for me and didn't tell me what it was. He gave me some hints. I don't 100% know what I'm getting. So, but I trust him, and so I'm really stoked to see what's coming for the car.
Was your friend stoked that you got this car when he found out?
He didn't know. He's not a Nissan guy whatsoever. He didn't even know what it was. And when
really?
he said, I gotta get something for that car. And I said, okay. And then he texted me last night and said, I gotta do something. So
nice.
We'll see. And let me just tell you, Z1. I mean, Z1 and us, just because they're coming to the off-road scene, we've been chatting a bunch. And when I realized, and like, unbeknownst to me, this Z1 kind of fell in my lap a little bit. And then I started looking into Z1 Motorsports a lot. And when I found out that, their rich history in the Z cars, I mean, obviously we know that they have a history, but once I realized that their history, I was like, wow, this is a rad partnership. They have so much to offer.
Right. Well, so guys, I have a video dropping Monday. It's the exhaust change on the Juke. It's about a 5.5 minute video. Watch it all for me. Like, once again, I know this sounds lame and it sounds like we're begging, but watch time matters to YouTube. Like, by almost more than anything else, watch time matters per video. So if your video is only getting, say, 20% of it watched, YouTube goes, okay, nobody's really interested in that, or the masses aren't interested in that. So it matters to watch if you enjoy it, obviously, but if you don't, just turn your back or something and continue to watch. But let's see. Any other questions here? So, Jim Bob, we really want you on the show next week. I think that would be, the people want to hear you. And if you haven't yet, go subscribe to Nashville Overland, guys. I know he hadn't really launched his channel yet, but Jim Bob, if you follow Jim Bob on Instagram, he's well worth the watch. And his overland tips are amazing. This week, did you see this week's overland tip with the big DSLR?
So good. I missed him so bad when he popped up. I'm like, yes.
So go overland, go subscribe right now. Clearly, my buddy Tim there with Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. If you're not subscribed to him and you're not joining our Monday chats, what is going on? Our Monday chats are just fun. Tim Barilli brings it, and I said it the last time when me and Tim were talking Friday. His side chats, like you guys are doing over here, it's like a whole nother conversation. It's like people pay attention to what Tim's saying, but then they have their own debates going on, and it's real fun. So that'll be tomorrow. I want to say at 7 p.m. And obviously I'll be over there to support my fellow YouTuber. Danny does live chats from time to time. So you were talking about this weekend that you might have one coming up soon.
Next week I'll definitely have a live chat next week Saturday. So look forward to that. I want to go over a lot of the stuff that I have to work. So I have so much stuff and so little time, and I'm trying to make it all work.
Right. So everybody, thank you guys for the super chats and the stickers and all that. I do appreciate it. Once again, you guys, the computer that we're buying was literally, it's being funded by the support you guys give us. So I do appreciate that. We're building up the Pirates chest to help me get me and Danny places to come to your things. So once again, I do appreciate that. And just basically for showing up here. These watch hours we get from this do help the channel quite a bit. So we do appreciate it. And Danny, any last words for you?
No, just a huge shout out to everybody that's following along with us, that's supporting us. You know, the little donation stickers that you guys do. That's a huge deal right now. I know, there's so many people that are hurting. Just hang in there. Things are gonna get better. Don't sketch about this, and be good people. And we're gonna try and keep doing rad stuff for you because this is what we love, and we love kind of giving you guys something to do in this crappy time. So thank you guys all so much for hanging with us and supporting us.
Right. So Andrew, are you ready, buddy? So from all things Nissan here in my office to wherever you're watching us around the globe, this has been your Nissan Nation podcast. And Andrew, what are we? Is he going to type it, Danny? Is he going to type it? I know Danny knows the ending.
Do it.
What is it, Danny? Ari?
Ow!
Peace, everybody. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you Monday and then next Sunday. So, peace.